They're alongside you.
There was also other areas being excavated as well, the fire pit still. So everybody was kind of tasked with something different at that point. And once we started getting down a little bit more in Tylee's burial site, we assumed it was Tylee, we could start to see the top of what appeared to be something plastic and green. And at that point, the ERT team leader, Steve Daniels, decided we were done for the evening.
When you were done for the evening, what happened?
We had Fremont County Sheriff's Office, the Madison County Fire Department, bring in two large light trucks to illuminate the crime scene. The crime scene was taped off. We had officers from Rexburg City Police, deputies from Fremont County Sheriff's Office that remained on scene all night long, walking the perimeter to make sure that the scene wasn't compromised. And it was well illuminated.
And did you return the next day?
Yes, we did.
And when you returned the next day, who else returned?
Everybody that was there the previous day.
So ERT came back
That's correct, yes.
and other members of the FBI,
Yes,
Fremont County officers,
yes.
Rexburg police officers.
Correct.
And I believe you testified earlier that there were some attorney general investigators there as well.
Yes,
And they were all there that second day.
that's correct.
Approximately what time did you arrive that second day?
We started fairly early. It was approximately 7 in the morning.
And what did you start doing when you got there on the second day?
I went back to Tylee's burial site. We had put up canopies to keep sunlight and wind. There was media, helicopters flying overhead, so we wanted to keep the scene from being compromised as much as we possibly could. And at that point, we got back down on our hands and knees and began digging again with those same little tools to get down to see what exactly we were going to take out of the ground at that point.
And so and then what happened next? Did you continue to do that work?
Like I said, we would take turns digging because the smell was so bad. And we would just keep excavating slowly around this green object that started to come through the dirt the first day. So it started to take a shape, a roundish shape, when we began digging down and methodically removing dirt. And at that point, we could start to see what appeared to be the shape of a green melted bucket that appeared to have the remains of, we assume, were Tylee that were charred and burned inside it.
And were you there for the excavation of that bucket?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Once we got down to what we thought was the bottom of the disformed bucket, we observed part of a human skull underneath the bucket. There were some teeth that we ended up excavating from underneath. At that point, the goal was to lift that out of the ground. And so there was we made kind of a little hole around it to try to get underneath. So we put tarps out. Like I said, the goal was to try to lift it completely out without manipulating it in any way. But when we tried to do that, when we lifted it, it all broke apart because there was nothing holding it together. So at that point, we had to go back in and remove all the pieces of the charred flesh and burnt bone and organs and pieces of tie leaf that put onto the top.
And while you were doing that, you talked about the smell, and was that still present?
Yes, very much so. Strong odor, yes.
Were you able to observe the lack of a better word, total removal of that green bucket and its contents from that excavation site?
We were able to lift everything out at that point. We put it on the blue tarp. There were photographs taken, measurements taken by ERT. Once that was completed, we dug down even further to make sure we didn't miss anything. Once we figured out everything was out of the ground, that tarp and those and Tylee's remains were then put into a body bag. In the corner again, lock the body bag for evidence purposes. And Tylee was also transported to the morgue.
And did you follow along when Tyler was transferred to the morgue like you did with JJ?
We did. We followed in the same manner. Myself and Lieutenant Ball. Once Tyler was placed in the morgue, we returned back to the Daybell residence.
Your Honor, I'm going to be asked that the witness be handed states exhibits 11A through 11G.
And Judge, for the record, I've previously reviewed these and I would object to admission of these as exhibits.
All right, exhibits 11A through 11G are admitted without objection. This time, as we get into this evidence, I'm gonna, because of the graphic nature of some of this evidence, I'm not going to be showing this on the court's live stream, nor to the general public in the courtroom. The jurors will be viewing the evidence as well as the parties are permitted to see that. In addition, the court will provide an opportunity for any victims that wish to see the evidence in a private setting to view it as it's now been admitted into the record. But we made arrangements to not display this to the general public. And so, Mr. Wood, with these exhibits, that's how we'll proceed. And we will not include that on the live stream, but you can discuss it on the record in open public with the witness.
Detective, can you review that exhibit, those exhibits? And Your Honor, I understand these are already admitted. I am still ask a few foundational questions just to establish knowledge.
Very well.
For the record. Detective, what do those, what does states exhibit 11 report to be? And its subparts?
Photograph of the pet cemetery and photographs of Tylee as we took her out of the ground in her burial site.
And Were these photographs taken on June 9 and 10?
That's correct, yes.
And were you on the scene that day when those photographs were taken?
Yes,
Are they true and accurate representations of what you saw?
yes,
Your Honor, those exhibits having been admitted, I'd ask to publish.
You can do both.
Detective, before I publish that, I'm going to place State's Exhibit 10A up again. And can you point to the general location of what you've described as the pet cemetery?
right here.
So Rick, can you have on the record and explain where it's pointing?
Yes, Detective, will you explain where you're pointing?
It's just east of this shop area and just north of the fire pit, so it's right through here.
And Your Honor, I do think that the state's first picture under State's Exhibit 11 is okay for public consumption.
It is. I just wanted to make sure our system was working as well, that exhibit 11A is fine.
Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 11A?
This is where we began excavating briefly. As you can see in this photograph, there's a small black dog statue next to the post. So that's where we had learned this was the pet cemetery area through talking to family members. And then there's just some tarps laid out for some of the soil. You can see in the back the markers that had been distinguished and laid out by ERT for the fire pit area that I had talked about earlier.
And Your Honor, I think at this point it's appropriate to turn to public access.
I agree.
Detective, Your Honor, I'm at a bit of I have no idea if this is, I can't see if this. Well, I'll ask, Detective, can you see that image in your monitor?
Yes,
Can you see most of it?
yes.
Can you describe for the jury what's been marked as State's Exhibit 11B? What did you observe there?
You're doing to try to line that up since you can't see the monitor. Do you want to set a notepad or something on there?
Detective, what did you observe in State's Exhibit 11B?
It's hard to describe without wonder, but I'll do best. In the middle of that photograph, you can start to see the different color and the changes in the soil from dry to a wet, moist dirt. You can start to see to the left just a little bit of that white piece sticking out, and it's burnt on top, and that's charred bone that's starting to stick out, and all the little pieces next to it are pieces of burnt flesh, tissue, what we later determined were organs that were all kind of, that's the top of what was inside the bucket. So that's what we first started to see when we started to excavate.
And at this point, were you still using the hand tools?
Yes.
You explain for the jury what you observed in State's Exhibit 11C.
So as we started to excavate down further, some of the top of the mass of burnt flesh wasn't really attached to anything. And so when we would start to dig away towards the sides, it would kind of come apart. It wasn't part of that original mass. And so what you're looking at on this blue tarp is burnt flesh still attached to some bone. The upper left part of that section that you're looking at is part of the hip bone that still has burnt flesh attached to it, and then dirt and just fatty burnt tissue.